Stop doing this. Lao Tzu says it's the root of your stress. Welcome to the video, and today I've got something that will change the way you think about stress forever. We're going to dive into an ancient teaching from Lao Tzu, the legendary Chinese philosopher, and I'm going to show you how a single habit, yes, just one thing you're probably doing every day, is the root of your stress. And trust me, once you understand this, you won't look at your day-to-day life the same way again. Let's start with the question, have you ever felt like you're constantly fighting against life? You know what I mean, those days when everything feels like a struggle, when you're pushing and pushing, but nothing seems to go your way. Maybe you're working hard, juggling responsibilities, trying to stay on top of things, but despite all your efforts, you just feel mentally drained, like you're fighting against an invisible current. What if I told you that this sense of struggle, this constant pushing, is actually the root of your stress? You see, Lao Tzu, the author of the Tao Te Ching, one of the most profound philosophical texts in history, had a very different approach to life. His philosophy revolves around the concept of wu wei, which translates to non-doing or effortless action. Now, before you think I'm suggesting you stop doing anything and just sit around all day, stay with me. This isn't about laziness, it's about alignment. What Lao Tzu is saying is that we create stress when we resist the natural flow of life, when we force things instead of working with the rhythm of the universe. Think about that for a second. How often do we try to control every detail of our lives? We micromanage, we overplan, we set rigid expectations, and when things don't go according to plan, we stress out. But what if the problem isn't in the situation itself, but in our reaction to it? What if the stress comes not from life's unpredictability, but from our insistence on controlling it? Lao Tzu's wisdom points to the fact that much of our stress is self-inflicted. We resist life. We cling to outcomes, we fight reality, we struggle against things we cannot control. And in doing so, we create a tension between ourselves and the world. That tension? That's your stress. Imagine you're swimming in a river. Now, if you try to swim against the current, it's going to be exhausting, right? You'll be fighting, using all your strength, but making very little progress. This is how most of us live our lives, pushing against the natural flow, trying to control everything, and feeling overwhelmed when we can't. But what happens when you stop fighting the current and allow yourself to be carried by it? Suddenly, everything becomes easier. This is what Lao Tzu is talking about when he says, "Stop doing this."
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
Let me ask you something. What are you resisting in your own life right now? Is there something you're pushing against, a situation, a person, or even yourself? We resist in small ways every day. We resist when we get frustrated that things aren't going as planned. We resist when we try to force someone to change. We resist when we cling to how we think things should be. But Lao Tzu teaches us that the key to reducing stress is to stop resisting. He says, "When I let go of what I am, I become what I might be." This means that by letting go of our need to control everything, we allow life to unfold naturally, and in doing so, we align ourselves with the flow of the universe. We stop creating unnecessary stress for ourselves. Here's a practical example. Let's say you're working on a project and it's not going as planned. Instead of stressing out and trying to force a solution, what if you took a step back? What if you paused, allowed things to unfold, and trusted that the right path would reveal itself? This isn't passivity, it's wisdom. It's understanding that sometimes the best way to act is to let go of overacting. When you stop forcing, you open yourself up to creative solutions that you might not have seen in your stressed out state. Lao Tzu says, "Nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished." Think about that. Nature doesn't rush, it doesn't push or force, yet everything gets done. The seasons change, rivers flow, trees grow, all without stress or struggle. How different would your life be if you applied this same principle? If you trusted the process instead of trying to control every outcome? Let me ask you another deep question. Where in your life are you trying to force an outcome? Maybe it's in your career, your relationships, or even your personal growth. We all do it. We set expectations, and when things don't go as planned, we try to manipulate and control the situation. But what if, instead, you embraced the flow of life? What if you trusted that things will work out, even if it's in a way you didn't expect? By practicing Wu Wei, or effortless action, you begin to realize that life flows more smoothly when you stop pushing against it. Stress melts away when you stop trying to control the uncontrollable. And here's the paradox: when you let go, you actually gain more control, not over external circumstances, but over your internal state. You gain control over your mind, your reactions, and your peace. Ride the wave, embracing effortless action. Now, let's dive deeper into this idea of Wu Wei, effortless action. Lao Tzu isn't telling us to stop doing things entirely or to live in a state of total inaction. In fact, he's encouraging us to act, but in a way that is aligned with the natural flow of life, rather than in opposition to it. Here's what most of us tend to do: we set rigid goals, we create detailed plans, and when life throws a curveball, we double down on our efforts to control the situation. We think, if I just work harder, if I just push a little more, I'll make it happen. But what this often leads to is burnout, frustration, and of course, stress. We're swimming against the current, exhausting ourselves in the process. Let me ask you, how many times have you felt that the harder you try, the more things slip out of your grasp? It's a common experience. You work relentlessly on a goal or a project, but somehow it always feels just out of reach. The more you push, the more resistance you meet. This is the very thing Lao Tzu is warning us against: forcing action when the time or situation isn't right. Wu Wei teaches us that sometimes the best action is not to act at all, or at least not to act in a way that is forceful or unnatural. It's about knowing when to step back, when to allow things to develop on their own, and when to intervene. It's about finding that sweet spot between effort and surrender, between doing and being. And this, my friends, is where true mastery lies. Imagine you're a surfer. You don't fight the ocean, right? You don't try to control the waves. Instead, you wait. You watch the water, you feel the rhythm of the sea, and when the right wave comes, you ride it. That's Wu Wei in action, working with the flow, not against it. The wave carries you, you simply align yourself with it. Now let's bring this back to your life. Where are you fighting the waves? Is it in your career, where you're pushing for a promotion or success that seems elusive? Is it in your relationships, where you're trying to change someone or control the outcome of a situation? Or maybe it's in your personal growth, where you're frustrated because you don't feel like you're progressing fast enough. Here's the truth: stress arises when we force things that aren't ready to happen. Lao Tzu reminds us that life has its own timing, its own flow. When we learn to trust that flow, we begin to experience a profound sense of peace. It doesn't mean we stop acting, it means we act with awareness, with patience, and with trust. We stop clinging to rigid expectations and allow life to unfold as it will. Think about it: what would happen if you stopped forcing outcomes in your life? If you allowed things to develop naturally, if you trusted that the right opportunities, the right relationships, and the right answers would come when the time is right. This doesn't mean we stop caring or that we become passive. It means we stop stressing over things we can't control and focus instead on what we can control: our mindset, our actions, and our reactions. By practicing Wu Wei, you'll find that much of the stress in your life begins to dissolve. You'll realize that many of the things you've been fighting against don't need to be fought at all. Sometimes all you need to do is step back, observe, and wait for the right moment to act. The art of letting go and trusting life. Now that we've explored the idea of Wu Wei effortless action, let's take it a step further and talk about something that's equally crucial: letting go. If there's one thing that causes the most stress in our lives, it's our inability to let go of control, of expectations, of outcomes. We grip so tightly onto our plans, our desires, our vision of how life should be that we miss the beauty of how life is unfolding right in front of us. Lao Tzu said, "By letting go, all things are done." It's a paradox that might feel counterintuitive at first, but once you grasp it, it's incredibly freeing. The more you try to control every aspect of your life, the more stress you create for yourself. But when you loosen your grip, when you allow life to breathe and take its natural course, you'll find that things often fall into place more smoothly than you expected. Let me ask you this: what are you holding on to right now that's causing you stress? Is it a relationship that isn't working? Is it a job that's draining you but you're too afraid to leave? Or maybe it's something more subtle, like the way you want others to perceive you. We all have things we cling to, thinking that if we just hold on tighter, we'll find happiness or security. But in reality, this clinging is like trying to hold water in your hands. The tighter you grip, the more it slips away. Letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means releasing the need to control everything and trusting that life has a flow of its own. And here's the wisdom Lao Tzu offers: when you stop resisting, when you stop trying to force life into a narrow box, you open yourself up to possibilities you never imagined. Life becomes less about forcing outcomes and more about embracing the journey as it comes. Think about it: how often do we stress ourselves out over things we can't control? The weather, other people's opinions, the outcome of a situation that's still unfolding. We waste so much energy trying to bend life to our will. But Lao Tzu teaches us that when we let go of this need to control, we experience a profound sense of inner calm. We stop resisting reality and start flowing with it. This doesn't mean we become passive or indifferent. It means we become adaptable. Like water, which Lao Tzu often used as a metaphor for the Tao, we learn to flow around obstacles rather than crash against them. Water, over time, can carve through mountains not by force, but by persistence and flexibility. In the same way, when we let go of rigid expectations, we find that we're more resilient and capable of handling life's challenges. Here's a question to reflect on: what would happen if you trusted life a little more? If, instead of stressing about whether things will work out, you trusted that they will, maybe not in the exact way you planned, but in a way that's ultimately for your good. Letting go is about faith, not in the religious sense, but in a deep trust that life is unfolding as it should, and that your role is not to control it, but to flow with it. When you practice this kind of trust, you start to realize that a lot of the stress you carry isn't necessary. It's a result of trying to control things that are beyond your control. But when you let go, you make space for peace, for clarity, and for life to surprise you in ways you never expected. So, here's my challenge for you. What's one thing in your life that you can let go of today? It doesn't have to be big. It could be something small, like letting go of the need to be perfect in a certain area, or letting go of a grudge you've been holding on to. Start small and notice how much lighter you feel when you release that burden. Lao Tzu's wisdom shows us that when we stop grasping, when we let go of control, we don't lose anything. In fact, we gain the freedom to experience life as it is meant to be lived, without unnecessary stress, with a heart that is open to the flow of the universe. Finding peace in the present moment. Now, as we wrap up, there's one more crucial aspect of Lao Tzu's philosophy that we need to explore: being fully present. You see, a lot of our stress comes from living in the past or worrying about the future. We replay old scenarios in our heads, wishing we'd done something differently, or we fixate on what might go wrong in the days, weeks, or years ahead. And in doing so, we miss the only moment we truly have: the present. Lao Tzu tells us, if you are depressed, you are living in the past. If you are anxious, you are living in the future. If you are at peace, you are living in the present. This is one of the simplest yet most profound truths we can embrace. The present moment is all there is, but how often do we actually live in it? More often than not, we're caught in a mental tug-of-war between regrets and anxieties. Let me ask you, how often do you find yourself worrying about things that haven't happened yet, or dwelling on things that you can't change? This mental habit is one of the biggest sources of stress, but Lao Tzu's wisdom shows us that the key to peace is to bring our focus back to now. Right now, in this very moment, there is no stress, there is just you breathing alive, existing in the present. This doesn't mean we ignore our responsibilities or stop planning for the future. It means we stop allowing the future to rob us of the peace available in the present. By anchoring ourselves in the here and now, we reduce the stress that comes from chasing things we can't control. We learn to appreciate the beauty of what is, rather than what we wish could be. So, here's a practical step. How can you bring more attention to the present moment today? Try this when you feel stress or anxiety creeping in. Pause. Take a deep breath and focus on where you are right now. Feel the air filling your lungs, notice the sensations around you, and bring your mind back to the present. You'll find that, in this space, stress has no place to thrive. Lao Tzu's teachings remind us that peace isn't something we need to chase, it's something we can find right here, in this moment, if we simply stop resisting life and start embracing it as it is.